The title of the talk today is The Way It Works. And the it is that divine power, that creative law. It works by corresponding. It works by saying yes. Repeat after me. Yes.
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 Say yes.
Yes.
Say yes.
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 That's it. Thank you.
How's that? That was good. I like it.
Yeah. I'll go into a little bit of detail because that's a little bit different than the way most people think that spiritual laws work. But the simplicity of it is also the subtlety of it. The law always says yes. What's the question? Well, that's the part that we get to work out. So it's really cold these days, which is nice if people like really cold. Last Sunday when it was 18 degrees here, I was in Phoenix doing the talk at the Creative Living Fellowship. It was unseasonably warm in Phoenix this week.
Oh, that's
I
nice.
touched 80 degrees on my walk on Sunday afternoon. So, but in the cold weather, sometimes the lakes and rivers freeze over. There's ice in lots of different places. And the interesting thing, if you look, it doesn't even need to be ice. It can just be any water. If you look at the surface of the water is always pretty much flat. If you look at the bottom of the pond, if you look at the bottom of the ocean or the river, it's got all sorts of different shapes. The shape of the water is flat. If you take water in space where there's no gravity, it's a perfect sphere. It makes itself into a perfect droplet. It just keeps to itself. Here, the top of it tends to be flat. And the bottom of it tends to be the shape of whatever the ground or the land or the object under it is. So we can use this principle to make ice cubes in the shape of starfish or anything else that we want. Because that mold that we pour the water into is what's going to shape that. The law works the same way. What we are doing with our belief is creating the mold, and then the law is saying yes. And whatever it is that we set an intention to create, whatever goes into consciousness through us or as us, shows up in our life because the law is always saying yes. Well, that still seems pretty simplistic because there's a lot of stuff going on that I don't like. Does that mean that I'm to blame? No, wouldn't use the word blame. Would use that as a way of understanding what that mold looks like. Because if the experience, if the ice cubes that I'm getting, if I'm complaining, I keep on getting these starfish-shaped ice cubes, what's the matter with me? It's like your ice cube trays are starfish-shaped, dude. If you want to have a different shape ice cube, get a different ice cube tray. If we want to have a different experience showing up in our lives, we get to change our consciousness, our mentality about that. So the reading today was from the Science of Mind textbook, and I brought mine along with me. Because Ernest Holmes in the first 4 chapters of the textbook, and honest to God, it's like only the first 80 pages. The rest of it is good too, but the first 80 pages are pretty magical. Kind of lays all this stuff out. He says it's been proved that by thinking correctly and by a conscious mental use of the law of mind, we can cause it to do definite things for us, through us. By conscious thinking, we give conscious direction to it, and it, consciously or unconsciously, responds to our advance along the line of our conscious or subjective direction. Which is a paragraph-long way of saying, it says yes. So, what do you want to have in your life? Is it something that you've wanted to have in your life for a long time? Is it something that has been elusive in your life for a long time? Well, where the rubber meets the road in this teaching is that if there is something that we say we want to have in our lives, if there's something that we feel that we deserve, that we want to be experiencing, and we're not, the place where we get to make the change to allow that new experience is within ourselves. And a lot of people in the world think of that as blame. It is not blame. It is understanding. It is using the feedback that's coming from our life to inform what it is that we really believe, and then we get to let go of some of those beliefs so we can make way for the new ones. Everything that we believe is something we were taught. We were either taught it consciously or we were taught it because that's just the way things are. We call that mind consciousness, group consciousness, or race consciousness, the things that have always been that way. And we tend to go on believing that they will continue working that way until somebody gets a better idea. Way back in pre-biblical times, there was belief in multiple deities, multiple gods. That we had to pray to the sun god, and we had to pray to the rain god, and we had to pray to various different gods in the hopes that they would do us a favor of giving us more sun or more rain or whatever it happens to be. And there was a breakthrough. There's one God, showing up in lots of different ways, but there's one God. There is that one power. That was a breakthrough. And now, almost all of these religions believe there's one God, even the ones that explain it and express it as different aspects. And then Jesus came along and said that God is love. Jesus came teaching love. That was his whole thing. And there was another breakthrough, and an understanding shifted. And along the way, Jesus taught us very clearly how to do a healing prayer. That was what his ministry was all about, was about healing. So all of these have transformed our group thinking, so we now believe that these things are possible. 150 years ago, it was impossible for man to fly. The laws of aerodynamics had always existed. It was always possible to fly. And, if you move your hand like this in the wind, you can kind of tell that there's a possibility there, but we never were able to flap fast enough to make it work. Well, it turns out once we figured out how to do it, now it's pretty easy. And getting back and forth to Arizona was like that because somebody was flying. I do not want to do that in a car, let alone on a wagon or a horse. So these things that have always been possible get to show up in our experience once we understand how to apply the law, once we understand how to get to yes, once we understand how to put an airframe together and how to put an engine on it so that we can move it the way that it needs to move. The law responds by saying yes, and flight happens. It's not a miracle. Oh, the Wright brothers created a miracle. No, they created an airplane. It was a breakthrough, but it wasn't a miracle. All the changes that we have in our lives are the result of changes in thinking, changes in approach, and opening up so that the law can say yes in a new way. Is it possible to teleport instantaneously from one place on the planet to another? Probably. I don't know how to do it. I'm as clueless about that as people 200 years ago were about how to make an airplane. Make it 500 years ago. Leonardo da Vinci, I think, had a clue. He just didn't have an engine. So the things that have always been possible continue to be possible, and then they show up. The things that are impossible because we cannot create a round ice cube with a starfish-shaped ice cube tray. What we need to do is understand that we're changing the mold, that we're changing the pattern of the way it works. And I'm going to go back to the piece that I was reading. This is, by the way, on page 52 of the Science of Mind textbook, and it is by far my favorite passage. It must and will respond to everyone, because it is law, and law is no respecter of persons. We are surrounded by an intelligent force and substance from which all things come, the ultimate essence, in the invisible and subjective world of all visible and objective forms and conditions. It is around us in its original state, ready and willing to take form through the impulse of our creative belief. It works for us by flowing through us. So he's saying we're not asking some external force to do us a favor here in the world. We are opening ourselves and allowing that good to come into the world through us, whether it's through our own work or by creating that resonant field so we can activate the law of attraction and correspondence and have that show up in our lives. Dave was mentioning before. He wanted to find somebody who does social media, and there are lots of people who want to do social media, but that activated the law of attraction, and they just showed up. They showed up in his Facebook feed, they showed up in his car, they showed up in his Rite Aid, they just kept on showing up. So what happened was he activated the law, and the law said yes. This law we did not create, this law we cannot change. We can use it correctly only as we understand and use it according to its nature. It's always saying yes. So what happens when we want something and we don't get it? What happens when I say that I want a relationship, but I don't have anybody to have a relationship with? What if I want to have a job and there's no job? What if I want to have money and there's no money? The law obviously doesn't work. Well, here's the really good part. Hence it follows that if we believe that it will not work, it really works by appearing to not work. When we believe that it cannot and will not, then according to the principle, it does not. But when it does not, it still does. Only it does according to our belief that it will not.
That's kind of circular logic.
This is our own punishment through the law of cause and effect. We do not enter in because of our doubts and fears. It is not a punishment imposed upon us by Spirit or God, but an automatic result of failing constructively to use the law of God.
Yeah. Very good.
I don't want to be lonely. Yes. So what's going to happen when my intention is I don't want to be lonely?
You keep not wanting lonely.
I can keep not wanting. Law says, okay, keep not wanting to be lonely. Or the law is saying yes, because I'm saying lonely. Yes, lonely, yes. What do I want to have instead? What does the lack of loneliness or no longer being lonely look like to me? I have to turn my attention to what it is that I want to experience. I have to know what I want the ice cube to look like. I can't just say, starfish, that's awful. I don't want starfish-shaped ice cubes. Well, until I understand what it is that I want to be creating, I'm not going to be able to come up with an idea for a new ice cube tray. I'm not going to be able to change my understanding there.
Oh my God.
There's a creative
Oh my
exercise. Upstaged and perfectly so. Hey, Chris.
Wow. Oh my, it should be about that.
The law always works. The law is always saying yes. The law says yes to you. The law says yes to me. The law says yes to the people who we like and support and agree with and vote for. The law works for
Really?
people who we don't. Said in Scripture that the law falls on the just and the unjust. The rain falls on the just and the unjust. Always says yes. So that's the invitation. It's going to say yes. What's your intention? What is it that you want to create? What are you inviting the law to say yes to? And then the step beyond that, which is from the part about it works by appearing not to work. If the law is not saying yes, or the law looks like it's not saying yes because I'm saying that I want this, but I'm getting something different, I get to look at what I really believe. Because if I go out to the dollar store and I get some ice cube trays to make square ice cubes, but they're actually starfish-shaped ice cube trays, the result I'm going to get will be starfish-shaped ice cubes. And I can complain as long as I want about how I want them to be different, about how I want something to change. But until I go and replace that core starting point, until I change the mold, I'm going to continue getting the result that I want. Or I'm going to continue getting the result that I don't want because I'm creating it. The law always works, even when it works by appearing not to work. If you believe it's not going to happen, the universe says yes, and it doesn't happen. And then we can be flummoxed. So how do you deal with that? How in the world do you deal with that? Well, we can always stop and ask ourselves in any situation, what is it that I really want? What is it, if this situation were just perfect, what would be happening now? And sometimes the guidance that we get isn't what we think it was going to be. Sometimes the guidance that we get is something completely different. There's that great sequence in the Harry Potter movie where he's got the good luck potion, and he figures out, he's going to use the good luck potion, they're going to maneuver something, and he drinks the good luck potion, and then he tells his friends, I'm going to go off and do something completely different. And they go, no, you're supposed to be doing this. And it turns out, by whatever that circuitous series of events, what he wanted to do after he drank the potion was put in exactly the right place to get the result that they were looking for, even though everyone in their right mind knew that was the wrong thing to do. So if you have an idea of how it has to work, that's what you've always done. And that's what's gotten you the result that you're getting so far. So it's not a punishment. It's more of a consequence. Or even more than that, it's a result. If you keep on getting the result that you don't want, then you have to keep on backing up into yourself, into your consciousness, and understand what it is that you do want so you can set a new intention. And usually when you set that intention, you'll feel it. You'll know that that's a solid one for you. It's going to be positive. This is what I'm claiming. It's going to be personal. It's about, this is what I am claiming. It's going to be present tense. When I say, I want to have a nice relationship, and the universe says yes, then I get to continue to want to have a nice relationship. If I set the intention to have a nice relationship, I'm open to my relationship, I'm open to this goodness, I'm open to the love, that's an invitation for the love to show up. Claim it. I have it now, or it's on its way to me now. And if it continues to not work, then there is clearly something that we believe that we're not aware that we believe. Because the law is always saying yes. But if we believe that it's not going to work, then it works by appearing not to work. So if it's appearing not to work, it's because the question isn't phrased in the correct way, because we are not actually open to it. Could be doubt or disbelief. I don't deserve to have a great job. I'm too skinny, too fat, too old, too young, too whatever, to have a perfect, wonderful relationship. There is some belief standing between us and that mold for the good that we're looking for. Because all the good in the world is available. This is an infinite power. That's the it. The thing itself is an infinite creative power. It has created everything. It continues to create everything. Everything that each of us is has been created by this one power. Everything that I am, everything that we are collectively, and everything that you are individually is that divine light, that infinite energy showing up in a specific way. And it can change. Anybody have something that's been going on for a long time and suddenly it changes? Show of hands. Yeah. Whether that was a good thing or a bad thing in your opinion, things go along and then they change. But that's the other clue that we can take. It's not bound by precedent. The principle is not bound by precedent. It doesn't have to work the same way tomorrow that it worked yesterday. We can change the mold. We can invite something new. We can create something wonderful. And continue to do that and do that and do that. And that's the invitation for you. That's the way it works. So I would like you to repeat after me. I say yes.
I say yes.
I say yes.
Yes.
I say yes.
I say yes.
I say yes.
All the good that you deserve is on its way to you right now. Each one of us is blessed, and so it is. Thank you.
Yes.